Inwood, New York City, welcome to Inwood Art Works On Air. It's where you meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, culture makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home what we affectionately call Upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and today we welcome local creative Porfirio Figueroa. Born and raised in New York City, Porfirio is a former triple threat who was fortunate to have danced for the legendary Jerome Robbins and the great Michael Bennett in shows such as West Side Story and A Chorus Line. He has also worked in TV, film, theater, in various capacities as director, playwright, lyricist, and producer. Locally, he is an active member of Fort Washington Collegiate Church, where he conceived, developed, and executed the Salon Hang, an art showcase for the Upper Manhattan community featuring over 44 local artists. Porfirio has advised numerous non-for-profits, organizations, and notable clientele on development, execution, and community outreach. Furthermore, he has advised the Washington Heights Chamber Orchestra, served as a board member of the Dance Project of Washington Heights, and AYUDA for the Arts. He is a cum laude graduate of the State University of New York at Binghamton and currently serves as the Deputy Director of Community Affairs for the Office of Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine. We're going to talk to him about his work on stage and off, but first, let me welcome you, Porfirio, to Inwood Art Works On Air. So great to see you.
It's good to see you too, Aaron. And, it's so weird hearing it from somebody else and not seeing it in writing, you know.
You don't need to see it, you've lived it.
That's true.
The legend is known. Murals on cave walls, perhaps.
Oh, wow, I'm in trouble.
Well, maybe not that long ago, but anyway. Porfirio, you're just, I say, your bio states you're a triple threat, but I feel yet, through the course of this interview, we'll soon learn that throughout this episode, you're the sum of so much more. So I wanted to ask you, how did immersing yourself in your beginnings in the world of theater and live performance affect the direction of your life?
Wow. Actually, that's a great question. I can probably talk about, let me start with dance, okay? So one of the core principles of ballet is, being regimented, doing your exercises every day. So I would probably have to say discipline. I would probably say that was the one key thing. It didn't matter what direction I was going in, what I said yes to, what new opportunity came up. Applying myself with discipline was what made it easy, or made it okay for me to learn whatever I was doing.
It's a great answer, and I think that's something that's transferable from any arts background or even an athletic background per se. Anything that involves a physical nature, the repetition involved, the attention, and the schedule. There's so much you have to put in, and the mindfulness of one's own body and soul combined with that. You have to, because you first have to have yourself in great shape before you apply it, right?
No, it makes sense, and not only that, but for your mind as well.
Yeah,
the transfer is interesting.
Well, and then
to say the least.
And so let's stay on the dance track for a second. What did you learn from Jerome Robbins and Michael Bennett that you could stay? Well, say,
I could use a few expletives right now.
Shall I rephrase? We could talk family friendly about that. You don't have to have a drink in your hand for that. Let's say. Well, how about we phrase it in saying, you can tell stories, of course, that are fun and also non sequitur if you like. But what about Jerome and Michael? Did you take away that helped shape you in your formative years as an artist?
I learned that you never know who's watching. You never know when you're being judged, or someone's back out in the theater actually looking at you, ready to direct or see something that you may or may not be giving. So I'll tell you a story about. I actually have one about each of them, but let's start with Jerome. I was doing my first national tour of West Side Story, and he was directing the whole entire thing. And we're in town previews before leaving New York and going on national tour. And I'm on stage, and I was like the first person to come out in the scherzo, which is the ballet scene, in Act Two. And so I come out and boom, and we start, and he goes, stop. This is with a 44-piece orchestra playing in the theater, okay? Go back, set up again, start over again. I come out, and he goes, stop. And he looks at me and he goes, young man, where's your understudy? And I went, can I curse here? Like,
Sure.
I said, holy shit. So my understudy walks out of the wings and he goes, he looks at me and goes, what are you doing? And I said, I am doing what I think is the choreography, Mr. Robbins. I didn't want to throw anyone under the bus. And he goes, try one more time. I did. He says, okay. And he looks at my understudy, says, why don't you step back in? I go downstairs to the dressing room, start calling my friends, oh my God, I'm going to get fired, I'm going to get fired, I'm going to get fired. And all of a sudden I hear my name, Porfirio, can you please come back on stage? Porfirio, please come back on stage. And he has me stand dead center and says, young man, I would like you to take this from into the first 8 counts and dance the whole scherzo. And I'm thinking, okay, the whole company's going to do this with me. No, by myself.
Oh, God.
The whole frickin' company is watching. The orchestra is playing. I finished the piece and I'm like, standing there dead center on stage. And he goes, that was great. Do you see that breathless, like air-like quality that he has? You could take a picture in the air. He goes, I want that from every single one of you. And he looks at me and goes, and young man, if you can get the first 4 counts right, you can have your solo back. I worked my ass off. And opening night, he said, good job.
Congratulations.
Which he rarely ever did. So,
well, it's much easier to pick on when everything's wrong than give a compliment.
At the Kennedy Center of all places.
At the Kennedy Center.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great story.
Yep.
Great story of perseverance, too.
True.
And also mind and body connecting.
I didn't realize that I was learning that at the time. When you're much younger, like you just kind of throw yourself into it, and that's exactly what I did. So.
Fabulous. And a Michael Bennett story?
Wow. Okay. So, it was always scary when he showed up because he had a very unique ability. Well, actually, both of them did, to just say one sentence and they could hit your trigger or make you understand what was absolutely necessary at any given point in whatever you were dancing or acting, whatever. So we're doing the opening number for a chorus line, and we get there where all of a sudden everyone takes their resume and puts it up to their face and goes, 1. And as I start saying, who am I anyway? I put my resume down. He's standing right there in my face. And whoa, so my heart's beating. Again, one of those lessons where you never know who's watching. I guess to answer your previous question, what I probably learned the most is that you always have to give it your best, especially when it comes to dancing and acting. I mean, it's one of those art forms that it's all in or nothing.
100%. No, there's do or do not. There is no try, as one famous old puppet used to say. But it's true though. It absolutely is true. You have to. It's full dedication, and it's without a net. You really have to just you go for it, and it's performers are some of the most fearless people in the world. I wholeheartedly believe it. Well, given your background and being familiar with your work, particularly your poetry, and your affinity for community organizing, it's my observation that the reason why I started with the question I did is that your art is the foundation for which you use your talent to you're uniting people through a harmonious and perhaps an empathetic experience. I feel like that's a nice.
Thank you.
I'm not saying every room is harmonious, but I'm saying, but I'm saying, like, I think at the core foundation of what you do, I mean, would you agree? I think, and finding a voice is one thing, is using it's another. So I mean, it's like being able to bring people together, for uniting people through art is, but using those qualities is a wonderful thing to be able to do.
What I would say is that took time. It didn't just come. It came through experience and allowing myself to be in situations where, especially if I wasn't the one that had the knowledge at the time, listening, educating myself, reading, you know, nothing against cell phones or anything like that or the internet, but there's something really remarkable about if you don't know it, go out and find it. Actors talk about feeling, but what they forget, especially if you're doing a piece that someone has written, characters have a syntax, they have a timbre, they have a meter. When someone is writing, and I didn't really understand this until I became a writer, that's when you understand and learn that it's almost like music, that one particular actor may have like a line or a lilt, and the way the writer wrote it should also come out in the way you act it. So how does that transfer into community, et cetera? You meet a lot of characters when, especially doing what I do. Most people just want to be heard. And while it's difficult, the first thing to do is listen. So,
And you also meet all types, and that's
yes,
another
indeed.
thing too. So I say, if you when you meet all types, you're able to communicate and organize all types, which I think are two good things that you've kind of I think taken away from your experiences with Mr. Robbins, and also through these large ensemble worlds that you've had to live in as a performer, and transferring that into your real life. You think?
Yeah, there's something very primal and visceral about dance, and especially because it's so physical. I think that also transfers into good actors. You see that they're absolutely 100% fearless, right?
Yeah.
And so when you can kind of take, it's going to sound a little philosophical, but you almost have to take your ego out of things. And I know we all have egos, but tone it down a bit so that, because it's the only way you can actually hear somebody else.
Yeah. Well, speaking of ego, I believe you have a poetry piece for us today, because I think it's a really great transition in this moment,
Okay.
because about being fearless and in the moment, and so I thought it'd be a great way for people to hear some of the work that you have self-created. It's not someone else's piece. This is your work.
Yeah. For this one, I'm gonna have to take my glasses off because it's one of those things I can't see with them or without them. So, all right. I think one of the other things you have to be when you're an actor is vulnerable. So I don't really think too many people have actually heard this. So this particular poem I wrote, I will try not to get emotional.
Well, don't worry about it. Only a couple of
No,
thousand are listening.
I that was good. It was for my mother's 87th birthday, and I don't know how I knew it was the last time we were going to be celebrating with her. So this is titled "The Keeper of Time," and I think it's self-explanatory. I stand in the park of my old neighborhood where kids still play and recognize one gnarled oak tree that remains in the place where unknown faces have replaced the ones I knew. Other trees bloom now, buds of spring, crab apples, and cherry blossoms freshly planted to replace those gone by. The forsythia, fighting to hold on, I'm drawn back. Though a lifetime, I've no choice but to walk the fading sidewalks as I take in the flaws of buildings neglected by the weariness of poverty. It's not how I remember it. Strange juxtaposition. The sun shines warm rays of light, memories of friends gone, Faces I barely remember, like the trees, they too have been replaced for fresh blossoms. The oak, the only testament to change, the keeper of melancholy. What a contrast to the running and dancing of youthful souls, shining in the glimmer of hope, unaware of the effects of time. They spark thoughts of the bonds built to support the one who got away here today. The sadness burns. Nostalgia tightens its grip. I approach the door of my childhood to lay hand on the doorknob to the home I bid goodbye. Nothing remains. I back away. I retrace my steps to the park I knew. The sun's last rays outline the horizon before darkness sets in, as I barely see the oak shake off leaves for me, timeless, shaking off memories as the keeper of time.
Lovely.
Thank you.
You bet. You bet. I'm gonna dry in the house, I'm sure. Wherever you're listening. I mean, how wonderful was that?
Appreciate it.
When did you start creating your own poetry?
I was 11. Wow, I haven't talked about this in a long time, but I was 11 years old. Of course, that involved a girl. I won't say her name. And she was a little older than me, and loved to write. And there was this magazine called Magpie, and it was for students, to put their stuff in. And she gave me two of hers and said, submit some of yours too. I thought her stuff was great. So I submitted them all together as mine because that's what she wanted me to do. And the only two poems they chose were mine.
Well, so much for plagiarism then. You got yours. So.
Got saved. But hey, I was coerced.
Yeah, that's right. That's true.
I was coerced.
Wow, what a stamp of approval saying, you're a published author at 11, huh?
I still have one copy of that.
Is it still in publication?
No,
I wouldn't think so.
doubt
I haven't
it.
heard of
No,
it
no,
in years.
Yeah.
I have heard of it, but not in years.
Yeah,
I mean,
so.
long time. Wow. And so fast forward to today, you've spoken, like I said, you've created your own salon, which is a wonderful thing for the community up here. Is it still happening?
Yeah.
I know it's been COVID and everything too, so just curious.
Yeah, that happened right before COVID. A couple of years before COVID, and it was sort of a branch of the not-for-profit for the church to do other things. And since we've done other things, we did a fundraiser for Hurricane Maria and several other things. The leadership there has changed. Yeah. So the Salon Hang, while it's still effectively theirs, has not, happened again. We're hoping to do a retrospective this year of our oldest member of the church. She's about to turn 95.
Wow.
She's a phenomenal quilt maker, and I'm really, really hoping that, we get a chance to do this, and that would be probably late April, early May.
Awesome. Well, if you need any help from us, let us know. But you're full, more capable. But my point is, we put a call out to help if you want more people to attend or
could always use volunteers.
Volunteers are wonderful people. We need them. They're the lifeblood of any event.
I've volunteered with your organization.
You have, absolutely. He's been a great volunteer. We were actually just talking about you earlier today. We spoke with about possibly someone talked to us about the free films we do in the parks and the alfresco series, and they said, do you ever go to Highbridge Park? And I said, oh, we've been. And,
yes, I remember that one.
And Ken and I were talking. Porfirio was one of our volunteers that day about. It's a wonderful park. It is perhaps such because everybody wants to activate parks, but it's such a busy park. It's not great for events you want to concentrate on, because there's so much happening around you, and 360 degrees something happening around you. So it's harder to do a movie in the park there.
Yeah.
Other parks are better for that. But that was funny, and you were a wonderful volunteer.
Well,
we really appreciate your help. So do you have any? So you're still writing poetry and all that, of course. Any other possibilities, performances in the community coming up?
I actually often get asked to do things at church, and so I'll often, like as part of the service, go in and read or
Yeah.
create something.
There's not,
Mostly,
there's not
I
a, there's not a
rewrite.
local slam anymore, you know?
Actually, the last major show I did, writing show, was for you.
That's right. At the gallery's pop-up
That's
space.
right. That was terrific.
Because there is a need. I feel you're not the only person in these here parts that is writing and want to express themselves either through spoken word or some kind of structural verse, whatever you want to call it these days. Song, for instance. There's poetry's in many forms, folks. So there is a need for it, and
I've
if we,
written a
and,
few songs too, so yeah.
and if we ever, if we ever and when we ever get our own space, that'll be 100% part of it. We'll, I think it's important to keep that up, and I think it's a great opportunity for expression and connection. Like I said before, going
Well,
back
I
to what you said
mean,
before.
I think you really have transformed the Upper Manhattan community in the cultural arts. I tell you that all the time. I really think that what you're doing is remarkable and much needed. I think it has really impacted the community here tremendously. I've seen it myself personally. You know, the arts and culture are a way not only to help our youth, but it does bring people together,
Yeah.
and and without any judgment. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Thanks, Porfi. I appreciate that, man. It's needed. Like I said, the most important thing I think is doing something where it's needed, right? Like you recognizing a need, and then it's like then not keep walking and stopping and going, okay, how are we going to continue this conversation? And yes, you're part of it, so you're going to put your own point of view and your spin on it, but you gotta listen to people, like you said. You gotta listen and see what's there. And I think we've been successful in that, and listening and saying, "Oh, what's important to you? Is that a project we can do?" Well, I can't do everything, but there's. Have you met this guy or this girl who can help?
Yeah.
And maybe you all take something and make something beautiful with that. That's really
Stakeholders
important.
are important, absolutely,
Yeah.
because no one but the community itself knows what they need for themselves.
Well, I'm a firm believer that theater people and artists in general can do anything. I mean, they're some of the most resilient, intelligent, and talented people in the world, and they can excel in any industry for sure, as their talents are highly transferable. So I want to bring it back to you and say, so what is it about the culture of local government that called you to bring your skills to it?
Wow. Well, okay. This is kind of weird. Often as a young boy or young man, I'd be asking, well, what do you want to, when you actually have the opportunity to make a change or difference, what do you want to do? And I always used to say, well, eventually I just want to get to the point where like I'm either wealthy enough or whatever, or have influence enough where I can help, youth and promote the cultural arts and or make a difference, and never in a million years ever expecting that would lead me to where I am right now, or anything having anything to do with politics or city government. And that came out of completely just volunteering, and it came out of actually creating the Salon Hang. There, I there were people who came, a lot of people from the community came, and someone at the time was asking and looking for someone to be on the subcommittee for our senator, local state senator. And so I was part of the advisory committee, and that just kept going. And then I worked for the DOE, the Community Education Council, eventually boomeranged back, helped the senator, did his inauguration, and then about a year later, just from keeping myself in community and volunteering, etc., became director of community affairs for him, and then transitioned from that, again doing more volunteer work, and the pandemic hit. Did a lot of work in this community. It was nonstop and exceptionally overwhelming, the amount of help people needed. And so that was all like during and while I was with the senator's office. And then I took a year off, and then volunteered for my current boss. and that led to where I am right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, you, my friend, are an asset to the Northern Manhattan community. We benefit from
Thank you.
all of your endeavors, and we are very lucky to have you. So, you know, why do you continuously want to serve selflessly for this community? In whichever way it is, through culturally or through government, they all kind of have a link to them.
Sometimes I ask myself that question too.
It's okay to say it. By the way, I give it 2 more weeks and I'm out of this joint.
No, I'm not going to say that. I it just feels. I know it's going to sound bizarre. It just feels natural. I truly love my community. I I think Upper Manhattan is one of the most special places in all of the five boroughs. Sorry, everybody else, but that's how I feel about it.
Sweet.
I
You're
mean,
not
like
wrong.
right now, I'm sitting here and like you guys can't see it, but like I'm looking out a window and the snow's coming down and like look at all those trees out there. Like,
beautiful.
where else can you be in the city and see that? You know, like
Yeah.
every day. Yeah, I've met some incredibly phenomenal people up here, and who truly care and are exceptionally gracious and kind and giving, invested. I mean, that's kind of one of the things I think other neighborhoods don't have, other areas in Manhattan don't have. You know, people, you need to be invested. You need to really love where you are. You need to reach out and talk to your neighbors. You know, get your face out of the cell phone, like really communicate.
Yeah. And I think when you say you need to, it's like inside you need to want to do that. You have to have that. And I think that everything you just described, the assets of this community are the people. And yes, we have the beautiful parks and we have the great history and it's New York City and so much cultural access. But and it's about the people. It's about
Yeah.
the people and it's about and also selfishly, I think in a good way, the place you want to live in. It's like
Yeah.
this is where you want to be from. And I think you choose to be here. You're an adult. You choose this.
Yeah.
And I think that's really special.
Yeah, I agree with
It
you.
makes really sense. Well, I know you have strong feelings about arts and education. And so,
Oh yeah.
may I ask you, do you have any sage advice or lessons learned to share in helping anyone struggling as a creative to define themselves, or anywhere, it doesn't have to be creatives, and, answering the questions, what does it take to be an artist, and what's important for an artist to realize as their responsibility?
I'm going to answer that question in two stages. First one is a reflection. I do not believe that our civilization or human existence can continue without the arts. I think it's something that's primal. I think that's something that simply because we have consciousness, we absolutely must do. It is vital for young people, especially to help them, understand and use their minds. And again, going back to what I said earlier when I sat down, the discipline of finding something in your life that you love, and how to be able to keep, yourself going. That the arts are one of the last things that is even considered in civic government or in budgets blows my mind. Like, what do you leave your children in the future, right? And I don't have kids, but I do a lot of mentoring, whatever. I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and I remember books were always my thing for giving away and et cetera, to help them, like to tap into that. So, and on the second half of the question, I actually wrote this down. It was the only, full disclosure, that was the one question I asked you to ask of me, right? So, what does an artist do, or what does an artist, I think, need? I think the first thing is to tap into what makes us human and humane. They're not the same thing. We are human, but how we treat each other humanely. I would also say look for inspiration at every turn. Learn, expand your personal growth. I'm astonished, and I cannot tell you how many young people I've spoken to, and I'll mention someone like a Jerome Robbins or Michael Bennett, and they go, who? Learn your craft. Learn the history. You have to know what the shoulders were that were there before you had the opportunity to stand on the stage or do what you do. Don't be afraid to be different. Reflecting on life and confronting life is part of being human. How else do you gain experience without doing that? This one may be controversial, but get out of your devices. There's nothing like connecting to another real, live human being. That is an energy and a transference that doesn't happen any other way. You need to tap into your soul and into your life force. I would also say seize opportunity wherever it takes you. I've been fortunate enough that I've been able to do that. And live life with passion, curiosity. And the last thing I would say is surround yourself with people who challenge you to think, but challenge you to think because they care about you, and who will reflect and mirror back to you the truth. Because that's the other thing about good art has truth. Even if it's an ugly truth, it has truth.
Well said. Well said. Well, looking forward, what do you have your sights set on yourself, taking some of those things? What are you looking to accomplish for yourself?
Wow. It's been difficult these last 2 or 3 years to be as prolific as I have been in terms of writing. I've been writing a lot. I write a lot. So I think I want to do more of that. Eventually I would love to work more with you guys. I think it's,
Anytime.
Again, I have you on speed dial, so that's good.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and also I am fortunate enough, and it completely separate, of course, to have a timber on where the cultural dynamic of the city is, and that's a really beautiful thing to see. So I'm always there to be an ear, and to offer reflections. I don't give advice. I only give reflections.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
a good policy
And you
to
can
have.
quote me on that one.
Well,
So,
Porfirio, it's been a pleasure speaking with you,
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
sharing these moments in your work. And where can people go to find out more about you and maybe contact you?
I eschew social media, so
That's fine. Would you be so bold to put out an email address, or do you perhaps they can contact me if they really want to get a hold of you?
contact you.
Okay. So info@inwoodartworks.nyc. Say, remember that Porfirio Figueroa episode?
I mean, of course, at my office, but you know where that is. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So he's also at the office of the Manhattan Borough President's office. Public domain, public website.
It is. It is.
So
Public
you can go
knowledge,
find
yeah.
him if you're
It is-
real.
it is
As he
public
said,
knowledge.
go do the work. Go find it. Go find him. And if you want it bad enough, that's what you should do. Man of mystery, Porfirio is, I tell you. Porfirio, thank you so much for being
you.
here. It's wonderful having you here.
It took long enough to get me here, right?
Well, come on, it's totally fine. So I want to thank again Porfirio for joining me on this artist spotlight episode of Inwood Art Works on Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, dancers, and poets of all stripes who make their home here in upstate Manhattan. If you have a moment, please show us some love right now and rate and review this podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. Many thanks to Good Shepherd here for hosting us, and to HeightsHeights.com for uptown promotional support. You can support Inwood Art Works on air and all of our programming by making a tax-free donation at inwoodartworks.nyc/donate or via Venmo at Inwood Art Works. Be sure to follow us on social media to keep up with all that we do, which includes the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Alfresco, live performances, and so much more. Inwood Art Works On Air is proud to be supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, in partnership with the City Council, and Inwood Arts programming is made possible by the New York State Council on the Arts with the support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Art Works On Air.